Good day, ladies and gentlemen, I'm Briarios Kerensky and welcome to the review of Senran Ninja Taisen Neptune Shoujoutachi no Kyoen, a crossover between Idea Factory's Neptunia and Marvelous Senran Kagura, with a sprinkle of Acquire's Shinobido for good measure. The game is available for PS4 in Japan and will reach Western shores in late October 2021 named Neptunia Cross Senran Kagura Ninja Wars. Despite both versions having such a close release date, the Japanese game doesn't have any extra languages. I must say that I'm far removed from Neptunia and bought this game just for the Senran Kagura girls. For those like me, this is a Neptunia game in both setup and execution. The story tells of a shuriken-shaped country divided into 4 nations, where 2 main ninja schools thrive, Kompa and Honipa. War suddenly erupts when the Steam Legion invades the neighboring countries with hordes of mechanical ninjas and monsters. The 2 main ninja schools are each represented by 4 playable characters, the 4 CPU goddesses for Neptunia and the 4 team leaders for Senran Kagura. A brand new character, the ninja cat girl Yuki, soon joins the cast to rescue the kidnapped princess of her nation, and a gender-bent and amnesiac God the Crow from Shinobido does the same in an effort to regain her memory. The game uses several Neptunia characters in secondary roles, like Histoire as the leader of the Neptunia faction, but doesn't do the same for Senran Kagura. The bad guys are new, or at least that's what my knowledge of Neptunia tells me, and among them there is one leading an army of yokais, represented by stereotypical Warring States-era skeleton soldiers. Considering that Senran Kagura has been slowly shifting perspective from fights between ninjas to fights against the supernatural Yoma, being the focus of Deep Crimson, the mobile/anime Shinobi Master, and the probably cancelled Senran Kagura 7, this is a very bizarre choice. There were established bad guys and enemies to use, and Ninja is developed by Tansoft, the same studio behind most Senran Kagura games. At one time, Homura even mentions that using supernatural beings will awake Kagura, so this is really a wasted opportunity. And that's not the only one. There are no extra costumes, no destroyable clothes, and the vast majority of combat mechanics introduced in various Senran Kagura games are promptly ignored. Ninja is a mission-driven third-person action game. You form a team of 2 characters, with no restriction in mixing and matching them once unlocked through story progression. Similar to Senran Kagura, characters start off with a short combo that will grow longer and longer as the game levels. Unlike Senran Kagura, there is only one attack button, you cannot launch enemies into the air, and there isn't a combo counter. You do have a flimsy long-range attack, and the best defense against enemy attacks is to guard, rather than dodging. Blocking at the right moment will nullify damage, but won't open enemies for counterattacks or give you any other advantage. Recovery windows at the end of combos and special attacks are rather long and cannot be cancelled out, and standard enemies won't flinch unless you hit them precisely during a small window during their attack animation. Otherwise, they'll just carry on whatever they are doing while accruing damage. Movement speed is surprisingly slow for a game centered around ninjas, with a single meter used for dodges, running and special attacks. The meter recharges slowly by itself or almost immediately by hitting opponents, and you can pretty much spam special attacks against bosses and mid-bosses. Special attacks are triggered by using L1 and a face button, a system used by many other action games. The main difference here is that holding L1 slows down time, opens a menu detailing the equipped special attacks, and only after the menu is fully opened you can select the attack you want. You do get used to this, but waiting for the menu to appear will always be awkward. The same menu mechanic applies to elemental power-ups, of which you have a limited number per mission. Hold down R1 and select the elemental from the power-up menu to receive a boost and some extra effects. This, along ranged attacks, is the quintessential "oh yeah, I have that" ability. The boost is short-lived and of limited effectiveness. When boosted, characters only get a palette swap, which is another wasted opportunity. Why not having Asuka and Omura change into their ultimate forms and create something similar for everyone else? Instead, you only get new colors. Ultimate attacks are charged up by hitting enemies and usually saved up for bosses, and those absolutely eat their life bars. Taken on its own, the combat system doesn't feel particularly great due to stiff movement and attack options, and the longer you play, the more you'll feel limited by the lack of variety. All characters play pretty much the same, with no real difference in reach, recovery time, attack power, or combo potential between Yuki's claws, Omura's 6 swords, and no, she never uses Engetsuga, or Blank's spear. There is a jump button, but there are no airborne enemies, and I think there are 2 ledges you have to jump on in the whole game. Up till the last 2 missions, the game is very easy, with no skill required to go through the opposition. Like many Tamsoft games, you get a plethora of secondary systems like equipment, different kunais and shurikens for ranged attacks, an orb system to boost stats, and a series of items to further help during missions, but they never come into play until you have to face the 2 final bosses, where you absolutely need to gobble down on items because their fights don't fit the combat system well. These 2 bosses have incredibly strong ranged options and teleport around the battlefield. It would have been fine if there was a homing button like in Senran Kagura, but here you are left with weak shurikens and using your special meter to run around the arena. Bosses do not flinch and will happily go through all your moves while you try to do some damage. Enemies, mid-bosses and some bosses are repeated throughout the game with a mere palette swap and no additional attacks, and stages have a basic design. Often missions require you to run from one end of the stage to the other multiple times to flip switches to open up barriers, and with environments being so repetitive, you don't really know where a barrier has been lowered. Enemies do not respawn, so you run around stages holding down the run button, and this becomes particularly boring in secondary missions where you need to find the last enemy you need to defeat. Story and secondary missions aside, there is a balancing minigame that uses the DualShock 4's accelerometers. This will bestow a bonus to 1 or more stats for a limited number of missions to all characters, no matter who completed the minigame. This minigame also has the largest amount of fanservice for the whole game, which says a lot. You do get some very tame jiggle physics, a couple of buff illustrations, and Senran Kagura girls do flash their underwear when running, and that's about it. Experience is shared between characters, so you can swap them around as you see fit. In between story missions you can talk to various characters to unlock more secondary missions or watch additional story content, but those aren't voiced, unlike main scenes. Completing the game with all story and secondary missions, all treasure chests discovered, full CG gallery and BGM list, and all character bios takes around 10 to 12 hours. After that, there is a third game mode, where you face a series of stages with just one character, and if defeated you need to start from the beginning. The main reward are high-level items, as all extra game contents are unlocked by completing the main story. Technically the game is competent, but nothing more. Graphics are okay, but I think a lot of the 3D models have been lifted from existing games, including the Senran Kagura girls. Their models look very similar to the last PS4 games, and I remember seeing the vast majority of standard enemies in main Neptunia RPGs. Portrait styles clash between Neptunia and Kagura girls, and the latter in particular feel rushed and not in line with previous entries in the franchise. Environments are drab, and there aren't many BGMs to accompany the action. Story cutscenes are the usual portraits talking to each other with a total of 2 mouth positions. I appreciate developers trying to inject some action in these sequences by moving portraits around, but some attempts come out as incredibly cheap. And it's not like Thumbsoft aren't capable of more elaborate story sequences. They tried doing that in burst renewal with simple camera movements, and Uta Warerumon no Zan 2 came out a month or so before Nin Nin Ninja in Japan with far more elaborate setups. Though I will say that the credit sequence is pretty neat and will make you laugh a couple of times. Taken on its own, Senran Nin Nin Ninja Taisen Neptune is a mediocre and forgettable action game, with limited combat mechanics, basic stage design, and uneven difficulty. However, it bears the name of 2 franchises, and comparison with its sources are inevitable. I haven't played any of the Neptunia games past the very first on the PS3, so I cannot really comment on that, but when it comes to Senran Kagura, not only the franchise is represented by just 4 characters, but many of its mechanics and unique elements have been left out for what I feel is no particular good reason, as they would have spiced up the otherwise boring combat. Combine that with average to low production values, and Senran Nin Nin Ninja Taisen Neptune comes off as another lazy attempt by Idea Factory and Compile Heart to capitalize on 2 franchises. And one of those is one of Idea Factory's best known franchises, if not the best known. Senran Nin Nin Ninja is not unplayable, but a squandered opportunity nonetheless. I hope you have enjoyed this review and you'll stick around for more. Briareos Kerensky, over and out.